far behind. Me, where trouble melts like a lemon
Hello,
drop.
Sharon Yankees.
High
It's
above the
time for Over the
chimney
Rainbow
top,
this week.
that's where.
How are you, Mark Silverman?
I'm here whether it was promised or not, and I survived Southern California and everything.
Did you shake hands with Mickey?
I did not. MJ
No,
and
it was
Angela,
it would be goofy for you.
yeah, MJ and Angela chased Mickey and Minnie, but didn't catch him. They just brought the character greetings back. That's part of why we made the trip. You could actually meet the characters now that you couldn't the last time we were there. So we went. It was fun. We had a good time. We have a full lineup of profiles to talk about
we
today.
had some catching up to do. Yeah, Angela Lansbury. I adored Angela Lansbury, but you know, it's funny because somebody asked, what's the first thing you think of when you think of Angela Lansbury? And most people, I think Murder, She Wrote, but I think of Mrs. Potts.
You know, I probably think of Manchurian Candidate, oddly enough, first.
It's another good one. Some people might think of, you know, I think she won an award for doing Sweeney Todd.
Oh, I'm sure she won awards in almost everything,
but
category
I
of
think
performing.
on Broadway, she won.
She received 6 Tony Awards, so.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. That she won a Tony Award for, and this time of year, Sweeney Todd would be perfect, you know. But yeah, she was a very gifted actress. I wouldn't say she was beautiful, but she was eloquent, you know. And who knew she could sing? I really adored her as Mrs. You know, I watched her in Murder, She Wrote for years.
I think in her youth, in her younger days, she was probably quite attractive.
You think?
I mean, I'm looking at pictures of her and
yeah,
not necessarily what would catch my eye, but had that movie star glamour type of look.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I guess
It's
for
funny.
the time.
Yeah, it's funny too because when she was doing one of the things that attracted me to her character as Mrs. Fletcher in Murder, She Wrote was, you know, I'm a big Agatha Christie fan, and she just really reminded me of Mrs. Marples, and it was funny because in reading the research, it actually describes her character as a kind of Mrs. Marples.
Yeah, no, it was
So
that's really what the inspiration was.
Yeah, I obviously was not the only one that felt that way. And I didn't realize how popular. I mean, you knew it was popular, but I read. Let me see. Well, the show was every Sunday night. I remember we used to watch 60 Minutes, and then Murder, She Wrote. Now I watch it too every so often on Skype on the apps. I think it might be Hulu. But when it was on regularly, it drew a weekly audience of 30 million followers.
Well, yeah, it was still on during the time of 3 networks.
Yes.
You know,
She won 6 Tony Awards.
But we're going back to Murder, She Wrote. The other thing,
yeah,
when I think of Murder, She Wrote, I said, oh yeah, Tom Bosley's other show.
Right.
Mr. Cunningham.
Right.
That was the other show he was on.
Sheriff. Yeah, he was a sheriff. He was good in that part. But she won 6 Tony Awards. She won the Lifetime Achievement Award, 6 Globes. She wasn't an EGOT though. I don't think. She won six Golden Globe Awards, the Laurence Olivier Award.
She would have had to win a Grammy for the EGOT. Is that what
Yeah,
might be
and
missing?
the Academy Honorary Award, in addition to nominations for 3 Academy Awards, 18 Primetime Emmy Awards, and a Grammy Award. The Grammy Award must have been the song that I've been gushing about. And she was appointed a Dame, Commander of the Order of the British Empire by Queen Elizabeth II. I had always thought, here's a chance I'm going to say something that could lead into a promo we have later. Because did you read the Harry Potts, the Harry Potts stories?
No.
You didn't read Harry Potter? So like when they first did Harry Potter, I had trouble accepting certain, you have in your own mind's eye what the characters look like. And while the actress whose name escapes me right now that did Professor McGonagall, she's a famous British actress as well, and I can't think of her name right now. I had thought Angela Lansbury would have been perfect for that role. Then I thought, oh, but they used British actors. But then really Lansbury was British.
Angela Lansbury was British. She came from not huge wealth, but she came from money.
Yeah.
She came from some money.
Yeah.
I like the fact that when she had her family, they moved outside of Hollywood and sent their kids to public school.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted to get a little bit distance from that showbiz world.
Right.
And
Well,
the entitlement.
Yeah, she lived a very good life. She was 96 years old.
And her last major role was 2018 in the reboot of Mary Poppins.
Yeah. Did you get to see that? I didn't get to see that.
Oh, yeah.
Was she very good? She was very good, I'll bet.
As a matter of fact, to promo an upcoming show, I thought it was great how Dick Van Dyke performed in that. And I'm promoting
Dick Van Dyke's gonna live forever.
You don't think? So you don't think we're gonna get to do him on the show one of these days?
Yeah.
Maybe we could add an Abe Vigoda category. Those you always thought were dead or should be dead or will be dead. But not dead yet.
We'd have to name that after Dick Clark.
Well, I don't know. It was always Abe Vigoda to me until Abe Vigoda finally actually died.
Right, but I mean, Dick Clark was the guy that never got old.
Clark, he never got old, but Abe Vigoda always looked like he was on death's door. He was only about 50 when Barney Miller started.
Right, when he did Fish.
Yeah.
But anyway, there's just loads and loads of accolades for Angela Lansbury, and she brings good memories to me, and she just had this warmth about her that you just really enjoyed when whatever she was doing. Well, I don't know about Sweeney Todd, but because that was a play I was never interested in seeing, but she evidently enjoyed doing it. So that's really all I have. You have anything to add to that?
Not really. It's just it's not like she's front and center, has been for a long time.
Oh no,
but she was always there, and everybody knows who she was. Everybody, even if they never saw Murder, She Wrote, they're gonna say, "Oh yeah, Murder, She Wrote."
Yeah. So and even kids when they're watching, Beauty and the Beast was an amazing animated movie. So she'll live on in repeat land, in TV land. But we're moving on to Judy Tenuta. She was 72 years old. I had never heard of her, but I really enjoyed. I really enjoyed reading about her, though.
Very prominent stand-up comic. Did you take a moment to see any of her YouTube videos?
I meant to take a look after I did the research, but I got hung up in doing something else. Was she Jewish or?
Oh no. She was.
There's a whole thing about
She
Yeah.
has a religion named after her, Judaism.
Is right.
Yes,
Yes.
Judaism.
So
Hi, pigs. You know, my name is Judy, and I have my own religion, Judaism. Yes, soon you will all be my personal love slaves. But
yeah.
She played like a goddess. I'm a big fan of comedy, have been all my life.
Mhm.
And I enjoyed Judy Tenuta. I generally am not a fan of comedians that do their entire thing in character.
Mhm.
Paul Rubens doing his whole career as Pee Wee Herman type of thing.
Mhm.
Bobcat Goldthwait, who actually has moved away from Bobcat. The kind of shrieky, loud
I mean, yeah. I mean, I
character.
never enjoyed. I mean, did you enjoy? I don't know. I have a feeling you would like somebody like Was it Rip Van Taylor or Rip
Rip
Taylor?
Taylor.
Rip Taylor with his seltzer bottle. I never.
Right.
Yeah,
Kind of the same
yeah,
thing.
I couldn't stand him.
I prefer the David Steinberg, Robert Klein
Hmm.
type where they're getting up
I
and
liked Rich.
telling stories.
I liked Rich Little.
Well, Rich Little primarily was
More of an impressionist,
an impressionist and an
but he was
incredible
funny.
one. But
Yeah.
Judy Tenuta played this kind of goddess and
you cannot possess me. No. Now, come closer to the goddess. Come closer. Oh, guess what? I want to tell you a secret. I want to tell you a secret. Guess what? I'm dating the Pope. No, I'm just using him to get to God. That's right, I love the Pope. He's a fashion plate. One time he called me. You remember he called me? Yes, and he said, Judy. He wanted to possess me.
a little bit of a shock type of comic. She had her accordion usually as a prop. She did a lot of travel work working with the audience.
That sort of reminds me of like Steve Martin, who plays a hell of a banjo.
And it's funny because that's true, and it almost contradicts what I was saying because Steve Martin essentially his comedy was playing a character. He was not really doing
He was a
stand-up.
wild and crazy guy. He was a
Right.
wild and crazy guy, but he was mostly like the funny guy in the movie.
Right. And I was a big fan of his, even though it really contradicts what I was just saying,
Right.
in that he was playing a character. We were not seeing Steve Martin when we were seeing Steve Martin do stand-up.
No, right. Very, very intelligent man. But yeah, I read that she was described as an absurdist accordion playing love goddess
Right.
of stand up who broke into the male dominated 1980s comedy world while wearing Grecian gowns. You remember seeing what's a Grecian gown? What kind of gown?
I couldn't. She always dressed. Let me just put it that way. She wasn't wearing street clothes. So if that's a Grecian gown, okay, that's a Grecian gown. But she was.
All right.
I'm a little upset because I just noticed in the notes because she was in a wave of relatively mainstream female comics, which in a lot of ways, the Phyllis Dillers and Joan Rivers, broke down the doors for. They were still, when Joan Rivers and Phyllis Diller were doing their thing of stand-up, they were still unusual. There wasn't a huge sorority of female stand-ups. And they kind of set the stage for Ellen DeGeneres, Paula Poundstone, Judy Gold, Elaine Boozler.
Don't forget Gilda Radner and Lily Tomlin.
Gilda Radner wasn't so much a stand-up. Gilda Radner was more of a comic actress. She didn't do stand-up. Lily Tomlin was amazing. Lily Tomlin was
Still is.
brilliant.
She still
But
is.
yes, but I could be wrong, but if I think about Lily Tomlin and her one-woman show was absolutely amazing. But
Mm-hmm.
I think she's more like Gilda Radner in that she was an improv-based comic actress who
More
almost
than a stand-up.
portrayed doing stand-up. When she did her one-woman show, she wasn't doing stand-up. It was a performance. Whoopi
Right,
Goldberg
right, right.
kind of spanned that. But Elaine Boozler did stand-up. Elaine, Rita Rudner does stand-up. Paula Poundstone does
I
stand-up.
love, you just mentioned two names that I really like a lot.
Ellen DeGeneres broke in, obviously, as stand-up and was very,
Right.
very good. Award win.
Mhm.
I'm a little upset because I thought I'm Saturday Night Live.
Yes.
Their initial casts for the first several years, they really did. It was said they did not do the female cast members justice. Gilda Radner broke out, Jane Curtin and
Jane
Lorraine
Curtin.
Newman, but
Mhm.
they were never the featured. They were always the accessories to the bits that were written for the guys. There were very few female dominant, and it wasn't until later cast the Sherry O'Terry, Shanahan, Molly Shanahan, and I'm forgetting the other really prominent one in that cast. And the current cast and the one that just kind of got broken up has some some would say female dominated casts. But
Mhm.
I always thought somebody, and I don't have the resume to write the book. I reached out to somebody who should write a book about the women of Saturday Night Live, and they could call it Women of the Night. And I see now that Judy
We're right.
Tenuta was part of the first HBO special, Women of the Night, focusing on female comics.
Yeah.
So
I mean, she was raised in Chicago, so when you talk about Saturday Night Live, it almost sounds like her type of comedy. I'm really surprised I didn't see Second City in there. Because
yeah,
I mean, the article gave me an impression she loved physical comedy, so she probably would have fit in nicely with Dick Van Dyke or Red Buttons, or any of the Second City people
well,
that
again,
came over.
she wasn't so much. I don't get the sense that she was so much sketch comedy improv background. She was pure stand up.
Hmm.
Although she did do a lot of voiceover work, she did do. I don't think
Hmm.
she did that much acting per se, but she did do a lot of voiceover work. She had that kind of voice and that kind of characterization. Judy Tenuta is very much groundbreaking in her own way, and I'm not sure why. And it seems common with female comics. She became kind of an icon for the gay community, and I'm not sure why.
Actually did not know that. I didn't see that in my notes, but I did get that she was in one of my favorite performances of the Vagina Monologues. You ever see that?
I did not. I know
That's hysterical.
many people have appeared in that. Many
Yeah,
famous women.
it says it said she did it with Dawn Wells, who we all know from Gilligan's
Gilligan's
Island.
Island.
She was let's see. She also made an appearance on General Hospital, which I've been watching that show forever, but I wouldn't have known that was her. She made a cameo in the Hilary Duff teen comedy Material Girls. She's actually a two-time Grammy nominee. So, uh, she, she's obviously very talented. I don't know how I miss somebody like that. She won, let's see, she won the Grammy Award and she got back-to-back nominations in 95 and 96 for Best Spoken Word Comedy Album for Attention But Pirates and Lesbitarians. And In Goddess We Trust.
Well, at
It
least now we
almost
know
sounds,
why she was an icon for the gay community.
yeah, it almost sounds like when you hear she won for the best worded album. I mean, it's almost like the flip side of George Carlin because he was the word master. Also, yes, I actually did read she often performed at gay bars.
I wouldn't put her. I I wouldn't put her in the same orbit as George Carlin.
No, but well, I mean, it's just well, I don't have not seen her perform, but when it said that, it just reminded me of the best, the 7 words you should never say on television type thing.
Mm.
She was an advocate for gay rights. She eventually offered to officiate same-sex marriages as a self-ordained minister of Judaism that you were talking about. In my religion, I'm the only one that gets to complain, she said. That's very Jewish. The really nice thing about my religion is you can forget all about your problems and think about mine for a while, she told AP. So that's kind of nice Jewishness to it. You have anything else to add to that?
I do not. I do not. We kind of shift gears to story in your neck of the woods.
Is it? Lieutenant Allison Russo, who was quite an amazing person, and it's unfortunate that I have to find my notes on her. She was an EMS worker I don't have my notes in front of me, so I forget how many years it was. She was 6 months away from retiring, and because
I think it was
she was
close to 40 years.
yeah, and because here I got my notes here. It says 49 years she worked out of the Astoria station. She lived in Long Island. She
No,
joined the
she did
FDNY.
not work out of the station for 49 years. She was 61 when she died.
Right. No, it just said she worked in a lot of stations, but
Yes, but you said for 49 years.
no, she worked out of station 49 in Astoria.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay.
She
I
worked
heard
out
it
of
wrong.
station 49 in Astoria, and she lived on Long Island.
25-year EMS member.
Yeah, she joined the FDNY as an EMT in March of '98, was promoted during the pandemic in 2002 before becoming a lieutenant in 2016. And she was in 1, 2, 3, 4, it looks like she was in 5 or 6 different stations. She was one of the first of many first responders for 911. And it says that she always greeted you with a smile, no matter what was going on. She had a smile on her face. She said, anything can happen on the job, including dealing with violent people. The problem is we never know when it's going to happen. Be anytime, anywhere. And I guess this is a quote that I had gotten. Yeah, she was 61 years old, was about 6 or 7 months away from retirement. And the thing is, like, their jobs are so dangerous, and the idea that she died because she went to go get lunch is just a shame.
Yeah, she was getting food for the house
It
for
was
the
unprovocated.
firehouse.
It was just unprovocated, and she was just went to grab some food, and because she was a lieutenant, they don't work with a partner, so it was sort of an idea that if she had had a partner, maybe she wouldn't have gotten stabbed. It was a very random, unprovoked attack, and that's a shame. She was one of those people that makes Earth a better place.
She would have been on the job 4 years when 9/11 happened.
Yeah.
That's got to be not exactly starting her career, but to be so young in the career and be faced with that. I don't know how anybody on the force and in the department went on after that.
Yeah, and the one good thing about this is that it does appear, they say that they caught her alleged killer and got him into custody at his nearby home where he fled to after the attack, and no charges have been announced. But
Well,
Sounds
he's
like they,
diagnosed schizophrenic, and it goes back to the problem we've talked about on a number of shows
right.
about mental illness, and it's not properly addressed in this country. I,
It's not.
I I'd like to think it's getting more attention and less stigmatized to the point that maybe we will see
I did see something about Biden, something about how Biden was paying some sort of attention to that.
what's interesting is it doesn't even the fact that Herschel Walker admits to multiple personalities and violent attacks and a whole variety of things
Yeah, I don't
hasn't
know.
sidetracked his campaign at all.
Unbelievable.
So one would think that maybe there is some growing acceptance, and with acceptance comes treatment, but even the treatments that Walker claims to have benefited from not looked at with credibility by the medical community. He
Right.
basically prayed his mental illness away. Is so that's got problems, but
Yes,
that has nothing
definitely.
to do with EMS
Right.
Russo.
Yeah. So they also promoted her post. I don't
Posthumously.
say, yes, they promoted her to captain.
Yeah, and I kind of was touched by the fact that rather than a hearse, uh, she was buried from a an ambulance. That seemed quite appropriate.
Yeah.
So, anything more
No,
on
she
Captain Allison Russo?
not not no. But we certainly, you say things like thank you for your service to like, the police and whatnot, but I think we should thank her for her service as well.
Oh yeah, oh absolutely, absolutely. Goes without saying that brings us to a couple of stories in the legal world to an extent.
Yeah, we have Lawrence Silberman. In looking up information about him, I was not sure he should get a dinner. He was a Jewish boy from Pennsylvania who grew up to become a judge. After 6 months of active duty in the U.S. Army and 5.5 years in reserve, he attended Harvard Law School and graduated in 1961 with a Bachelor of Law degree. I mean, there was a lot to pick from. I kind of scattered through it to kind of edit myself. He worked in the private sector as a partner at the law firms Moore Silberman and Scholes. He also served as an executive vice president of Crocker National Bank in San Francisco. He got around. He also led the development of legislation to implement final offer selection as a means of resolving labor disputes. As an undersecretary, he repeatedly clashed with Charles Chuck Colson and tendered his resignation to compel the hiring of a black regional director in New York in 1972.
Well, yeah,
Um,
I mean, he was he served as a deputy attorney general under Richard Nixon, for crying out loud. He's been around a long time, and he has been in some very prominent legal positions on the appeals court and whatnot. He was considered for the Supreme Court several times,
mhm.
but he kind of got caught up in the whole when after Robert Bork, it started is when it first started to become a little bit more political, and he got caught up in that in part because of I believe he opposed Roe versus Wade.
Mhm.
Remember when that was a law that protected people's rights?
Yeah, that turned me off on him. I also read that he was tasked with reviewing J. Edgar Hoover's secret files, which he described as the single worst experience of his long governmental service. And he served briefly as the acting attorney general during the Watergate crisis.
Mm-hmm. But he also upheld Washington D.C.'s ban on firearms. Wait, I'm sorry. Wow, I might have misread that. I did misread that. He held that the District of Columbia's flat ban violated the Second Amendment. So
Right.
when I was first reviewing him, I had thought he had come down on for some things that I would
No,
have
he's
approved of and against, but now it looks
yeah,
like
no,
he's
he's
pretty
on
much
the wrong
across the
side.
board.
Yeah, he's on the wrong side of that. It just says he accepted President Ford's resignation pending the confirmation of his successor. He was an ambassador, succeeded in freeing an American, Laszlo Toth, who had been falsely imprisoned by the regime as a CIA agent, by putting pressure on both the Yugoslav regime and the State Department. He held 6 Senate confirmed positions and never received a dissenting vote. He was right.
Well, now that
U.S.
I've reviewed, now that I have a more accurate picture of some of his decisions, I'm not quite as surprised that he won the first annual Justice Clarence Thomas First Principles Award. Boy,
Mhm.
that's a set of words that don't
Yeah,
normally go together.
say that 10 times fast, Mark.
Clarence Thomas and Principles. And then he died. He got that in October 20th of 2021,
Yeah.
and he died in October of 2022. So he gets to leave this earth tied to Clarence Thomas. Point of pride, I suppose.
Yeah.
All right, let's that's enough dinner for
For him,
Justice
yeah.
Silverman. Yeah. David Beckwith has an odd tie to that, in that he was a reporter for Time magazine back in 1973, and
Yep.
there was a big controversy this year when the decision to overturn Roe versus Wade got leaked and was reported by
Mhm.
the press. His claim to fame was he had the scoop that the Supreme Court was going to rule
It was
on Roe
right.
versus Wade
It's a reversed.
and
Yeah.
create the protections that women have over their own body. And he
That
had
was
that story before anybody else.
yep.
And researched it. He was following it. He was picking up
Absolutely.
on
He
things
broke
that were going on and really bored down and dug deep. He didn't just stumble on it.
no. It said and in my notes it says no decision in the court's history, not even close, not even those outlawing public school segregation and capital punishment, has evoked the intensity of emotion that will surely follow this ruling, which revealed that a majority of the justices had concluded that the Constitution ensured a right to an abortion founded on a fundamental right to privacy. I think somebody should send that to our current court.
Mm-hmm. Instead, they're using precedents from like 1698 and
Unbelievable.
1702 and stuff like that. The Unless you have more on Beckwith, what I find interesting is because he was writing for Time magazine, and
Mhm.
he had that story on Sunday. A decision was going to come out on Monday or Tuesday. So by the time the next edition came out, it's no longer a scoop. And in 1973, Time magazine didn't have things like a website or
Right.
a Twitter account. News was very different then, which leads us into
Oh,
our next two
absolutely.
stories. The first being a person, Al Primo. Al Primo's claim to fame in television news was he's credited with creating the eyewitness news format, which we've done many stories on Edward R. Murrow type and Walter Cronkite
Yep.
type and the
Very many different, all that same era type news commentator,
the
anchor.
dignified anchor person delivering the news, the voice of God delivering the news type of thing. Al Primo and Eyewitness News changed that. It brought the reporters into the studio, to the desk with the anchor people, and created what, to an extent, what would be called happy talk.
Yeah, I don't know that he did a good thing. I kind of, maybe I'm a little old school. I kind of miss that, just the facts type news. I think there's these days, I think there's too much
But
sway in what they
I have to believe. I
how
have
they-
to believe you watched Roger Grimsley and Bill Butel do the news.
This is Eyewitness News with Roger Grimsby, Bill Butel, plus Spencer Christian, Storm Field, and the Eyewitness News team.
Good evening, I'm Roger Grimsby. Here now the news. Dog days of summer, here with a vengeance. Hot weather combined with a high humidity, causing Con Ed to stretch power to the limit. We're paying a price. Apparently the humidity got to the egg timer in the control room. Hoping your news is good news, I'm Roger Grimsby.
And I'm Bill Butel. Thank you very much. Good luck and be well.
On Channel
I know who
7.
they are, but yeah, we weren't watching. You know, we were Walter. We were Uncle Walter, yeah, and Chuck Scarborough kind. We really didn't do the ABC.
Chuck Scarborough wasn't Eyewitness News because it was a different network, but it was part of that news team and that happy talk.
I don't know about the happy talk, but even when Dan Rather was doing the news, when he picked up from when Walter kind of handed him on, I think for a long time he held the anchor position in quite the same way.
Yeah.
It's interesting because El Primo started out as a mailboy in a Pittsburgh television station, WDTV, and started moving up the ranks at the station. He switched dial positions from Channel 3 to Channel 2 with the Dumont Television Network, which I think then turned into Westinghouse. We all know about Westinghouse Broadcasting. Don't they own ABC? I mean,
No.
CBS. No, who's the parent company for CBS?
Paramount.
Is it Paramount? Yeah. So it's that's, and who owns NBC?
Universal.
Oh, I thought it was Westinghouse.
No, and
Okay.
I don't think Westinghouse is anything.
Hey,
anymore in that respect.
we learn new things every day on Over the Rainbow. But Primo was named assistant news director of KDKA TV. He then moved from KDKA TV to KYW TV in Cleveland, Ohio, to become the news director there in 1964, where guess who he met and hired?
Roger
Tom Snyder.
Grimsby. Tom Snyder.
Tom Snyder. And Tom Snyder ended up, so he hired Tom Snyder to replace a gentleman whose name is Jim Axel. And when Westinghouse switched their Cleveland station for NBC's WRCV in Philadelphia in 65, he moved on to Philadelphia. So he's getting around. He's been in Ohio. He went to Philadelphia. In Philadelphia, he launched the format we're talking about now, which is the Eyewitness News format. And then he moved, in 1968, he moved that to WABC TV, the ABC affiliate in New York City, to become the director of news there.
And
So
you have
that's
to
how
say,
we got
when he started breaking into news and production, news was a 15-minute show.
Yeah.
News was a
Can you imagine?
Now
24
even on
hours?
our local channels, some of the local channels here have 2.5 to 4 hours of news.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, even they took Days of Our Lives off Channel 4 and they replaced it with more news.
They might have a 5, a 6, and then
Isn't
7.
How many segments are there of Good Morning America?
You're right. You have the morning shows, and that's not to even mention
No, it's
the
even
24-hour
like,
stations.
yeah, it's even mentioned like part 1, part 2. I think there's 4 parts, or part the 4th hour, whatever. So I'm like, enough.
So news is certainly, there's certainly more platforms and
Yeah,
more
but
ways
he
to deliver it.
The new format included on-camera exchanges between anchors and on-set reporters, and also chose the musical score from the tar sequence in the movie Cool Hand Luke as the news theme to WABC Eyewitness News. I didn't know that. That's kind of cool. And then he teamed up with anchor duo Roger Grimsby and Bill Butel in 1970. Duo garnered high ratings for 16 years. And then this is something I didn't know either. Grimsby didn't leave. He was let go
Yeah.
from ABC in 1986.
Yeah.
How about that?
I actually remember that. That was not, it did not go smoothly.
Do you know what happened?
I don't want to speculate. I think I do, but I don't want to speculate.
Okay.
Because I didn't look it up and I only have
Gotcha.
a vague sense of what I think. And
Okay, yeah, I just thought it was something. Sometimes the things you remember are quite extraordinary, Mark.
But without
yeah.
Without Al Primo, we might not have had Ted Baxter.
Yeah, he also, right. He also, in 2002, he launched Teen Kid News as a project to give young people an opportunity to develop an interest in the news industry through delivering news and information to their peers. That went quite well. It's doing quite well. And
that brings us to, unless you have more on Primo, that brings us to...
No, that'll do it.
Essentially the death of a radio station, KGO Radio here in San Francisco. KGO was ABC owned and operated, was ABC owned and operated for many years. And about 40 years ago, a gentleman named Mickey Luckoff became the president of KGO. And I'm not saying he necessarily invented the talk format, but he certainly mastered it and created a station with some of the best talent in the industry. Talk. You could call in, and some of it wasn't always political, and it was across the board. Probably a liberal, probably leaned left, but left center mostly. Ron Owens was the star, their main talent for many years. He liked to call himself center, but radio legends like Gene Burns and Gil Gross were part of it. It was such a beauty. Gene Burns is a legend in radio, and he came to KGO as a fill-in and a weekend guy before they were finally able to get a slot for him. Gil Gross was ABC, worked for every network, still does. And again, he was primarily a fill-in for the talent on KGO until they were able to find a slot for him. And what was cool about KGO, the listeners were part of the family and had their own reputations. I mean, people who listened to KGO knew Frank from Novato, knew Ted from Los Gatos, knew Billy from Santa Cruz. These are personalities, even though they were just listeners and callers. As a matter of fact, when this is what she called herself, Fat Eleanor from Little Bray, when she passed away, there were over a dozen KGO listeners and personalities, maybe more, at her funeral.
Wow.
What made KGO unique, and I know that, for instance, Ron Owens tried to syndicate. He did the show, he simulcast from San Francisco and LA. It didn't work. And part of it is because what KGO was talking to your neighbor over the fence about what was important to you in your neighborhood. And so it didn't necessarily work when your neighborhood was spread across the country. But
that makes sense.
But KGO was listeners. it's died, unfortunately, several deaths, in my opinion. KGO, I worked for KGO for many years. I was Ron Owens' producer, among many other positions. And
How did you end up there? How did you end up there?
I ended up there because I always had an interest in talk radio from listening to Gil Gross on WCBS in New York. When I was in high school, I was the kid who was listening to talk radio and I listened to PLJ also, but I listened to WCBS, and I became a big fan of Gil Gross. And then I read a book by Larry King, who talked about how he prepared or often didn't prepare for interviews because he didn't need to. It was just a conversation, and I liked that. And I got an opportunity to meet Mickey Luckoff a little bit and finagled an interview, and that's how I got my foot in the door. And I became a part-time producer, a fill-in producer, then a weekend overnight producer. So that's how. And then I became kind of the super sub off the bench. I could produce any show with any talent. They even brought me in as an extra producer, or especially if they had some new talent that had never done talk before. I was there to help guide them through it. And ended. Radio went through some consolidations as internet grew and the advertising dollars, disappeared, and the way the ratings were calculated changed. The money was getting smaller and smaller, and ultimately Disney sold off ABC Radio, kept ABC TV, sold off ABC Radio. And the company that bought ABC Radio, which included KGO, had leveraged itself with so much debt in order to buy this huge network. It was a small radio conglomerate buying this huge network. They had to take on so much debt just as the dollars crashed. The advertising dollars disappeared. They couldn't carry that debt load. So ultimately, KGO was able to do less and less. And it would be about 2010, I guess, 2011. I'd have to check. I know exactly what was happening that day. Mickey Luckoff surprised everybody by announcing he was resigning because he could no longer hold back the bean counters. It was what it boiled down to. And about 8 months or maybe a year later, they fired all the talent, rehired some of them, kept some of the weekend people, tried to do a mix with syndication, tried to get cheaper talent to do the same thing, but it was never the same. And this last week, in the middle of one of their shows, the talk show host literally had the voice in his ear say, "We need you to go to break and come talk to the executive producer." So he went to commercial, and they put on this endless loop of the new KGO. KGO has served this market for for 80 years. They even had that wrong. And tune in Monday. This is Thursday. Tune in Monday to hear what KGO will be for the future. And I haven't been able to bring myself to listen to about 30 seconds. They were doing syndicated sports talk. And it's never going to be that over the fence somebody to chat with again. And that's it. That's it.
Okay.
But just like Al Primo changed news, KGO changed talk, and it changes yet again. And I don't.
They say all good things come to an end.
Yeah, and I don't think the things that have replaced it will be able to capture that aspect of what KGO did. But let's wrap up with something a little bit
animal related stories. You did promo. They're tuning in to find out about Pebbles. Pebbles was the world's oldest dog. She and the thing is that they weren't sure. It was like a little bit of double checking to make sure she was the oldest dog. She was only recognized as the world's oldest living dog earlier this year. In April, Guinness had initially named the 21-year-old Chihuahua named Toby Keith as the oldest living dog. But when Pebbles owners saw the news, they realized their dog was actually older, and they leaped into action like a dog chasing a squirrel. And Bobby and Julie Gregory, Pebbles' owner, submitted their pet for the record. The tiny toy box terrier was born on March 28th, 2000, according to the release. She mothered, get this, 32 puppies over the course of her life. That's a lot of children.
Yeah.
The 4-pound terrier loved listening to country music and trying new foods, said Gregory in the statement. Her wardrobe was studded with dozens of adorable outfits, including a festive pumpkin hat and a pink dress that were documented on the Instagram account. Pebbles, the world's oldest dog, has died at the age of 22 and is logged that way according to the Guinness World Records. And then, we wish her to rest in peace.
Yeah. So I have a Chihuahua, and she's 14 now. I didn't know they could live that long.
See? How about that?
Well, she was 11 when we adopted her, 12 when we adopted her. So,
Uh-huh.
and they were having trouble finding a home for her. So, Maya may be with us for a while, I hope. I don't know if she'll make it to 22, but we take what we'll get.
You never know.
It's, the joy that she gives us will more than compensate the
It's
pain
like,
when she eventually crosses over.
That's the thing about adopting a rescue dog versus going into a store, because you feel like you're saving their life, but they really save yours. That's the unconditional love. There's no love like there is from a puppy. I'm sorry. I mean, cats can do it too, but to me, there's nothing like a hug. What's that Peanuts Lucy said there's nothing better than a
warm hug or something like that?
Yeah.
Or is it happiness is a warm gun? No, that's the Beatles.
Yeah, happiness is a warm hug from a puppy or something like that.
Well, that more or less brings us to the end of another week's Over the Rainbow.
Yes,
Next week, among others, we have Bruce Sutter to talk about, which is more than appropriate and sad given that we are in the baseball postseason leading up to the World Series.
Yeah, and we need some prayers for my Yankees. They need to get it going.
We may be able to talk about the death of the 2022 Yankee season next week.
Oh no!
And then do you know who Robbie Coltrane is?
Yes. You know what? It's funny because when I heard Coltrane, I started thinking about the jazz saxes. And then when I looked, I'm like, oh, he was Hagrid. I did not, I'd seen Harry Potter several times and I read all the books. And when I saw it the first time, it actually was a class trip. I took my kids. Actually, the whole grade went to the movies on Coney Island Avenue. We all walked down to the Kent Theater, you might remember. And we all went over there in the morning, and they showed a special showing of the very first Harry Potter. I was not happy with Hagrid. I imagined him being bigger, but you know what? He's a very talented guy, and he just owned the role, and I ended up falling in love with him as in the character. It was fun reading about him, so I can't wait to share that with our listeners.
Well, that's assuming that we are promised tomorrow or next week.
Right. Well, we are, like you say, we already put out who they need to come back for, so they need to be here tomorrow. Well, maybe not tomorrow, but they need to maybe skip over to the next week. But it does say, that you just never know, and so you need to show your love for those you care for today because they may not be here tomorrow.
Well, that brings us to the end of another episode of Over the Rainbow. Sharon, it was a pleasure, and I hope your Yankees pull it out.
Thank you. Thank you. They have the day off today to get a little breather and recharge. So, all right.
They certainly look like they need it.
See you next time.
Bobby got leukemia, 14 years old.